very much for your cooperation. Mr. Neubauer, on behalf of the Canadian Council of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
Thank you. First, I'd like to extend my thanks to the Senate for inviting the Canadian Council. This is an organization which you may know was formed in 1992 to give a voice to criminal defense lawyers practicing across Canada whose perspectives and experiences are as unique and diverse as the country itself. To give very brief background on me, although I'm a practitioner in criminal defense now, I began my career as a drug prosecutor with the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. I summared, articled there, and also worked as a Crown. And as a Crown, I worked in the downtown busy courthouses, drug courthouses, that gave me insight into sort of this issue, as well as the youth courts, where youths are prosecuted for drug offenses. In my experience, overwhelmingly with respect to marijuana use. And so that's the perspective I bring, and also which I hope I can bring on behalf of the Council. From our perspective, this bill is so important in many ways. It's leading the way for a cultural shift. It's also leading the way for a legislative shift, representing a recognition, perhaps, that careful regulation rather than criminal prohibition can be an effective way, perhaps a more effective way, of addressing social ills. And so this bill could be a roadmap for further changes, and therefore it's important, we say, to get it right. This bill also is an important means in a very real and practical way of reducing harm. I note that many concerns have been raised in the debate around this bill about the potential harm caused by marijuana use. And the potential harms to children, I think rightly, have been highlighted. But I would urge, however, that the benefits of eliminating the illicit market for marijuana cannot be lost in the debate as well. As both Crown and Defence Counsel, I've seen firsthand the violence occasioned upon young people by illegal organizations which have as their primary profit regime the sale of drugs, including marijuana. So the Canadian Council's view is that a true legalization model, analogous to those employed for other harmful substances like tobacco and alcohol, is an optimal solution. And anything else, importantly, will have unintended, inadvertent impacts. A criminalization regime, a continued criminalization regime, will require police to enforce. And this regime, and as history teaches, and as Mr. Spratt helpfully highlighted, this can lead to a disproportionate impact on minorities and marginalized groups. And it can also lead to continued charter ambiguous interactions, if I can put it that way, between police and these marginalized groups. I think an important point and a perspective that the Canadian Council can perhaps particularly bring to this discussion is that this regime will apply inconsistently across the country. We benefited very greatly from submissions from our colleagues in the North, and they flagged a number of very important concerns. So, for example, the means to pay a $200 ticket, the financial means to do that, is just something that may not be available to many segments of our population. And that means these lesser consequences that the ticket regime allows may be lost on certain segments. Other things even surprised me. They hadn't occurred to me. Things like paying tickets within a time frame where the mail functions differently, where access to checks or credit cards functions differently, is a very real concern. The time frames of I believe, 30 days can be something rather onerous when you're looking at one location many, many miles away to try and get to in order to make those payments. Other issues that are engaged by different parts of the country are Crown's personal approaches to prosecution and individual police detachments' willingness to engage in the ticket system. We'll note that the ticket regime is entirely optional. So there's no requirement, which perhaps would be prudent, there's no requirement that the ticket regime be employed as the structure of first resort. And I think that would be a very positive change to the bill, if not made mandatory, clear guidelines about how it could be the mechanism of first resort in addressing relatively simple marijuana charges.
Thank you. Concluded very quickly.
I'll leave additional content for questions.
Thank you very much.